Hello, doctors. INICT has very silently changed a few rules. As a result of these changes, few candidates who were earlier eligible would now become ineligible to apply under certain categories, and vice versa is also true. So, these rules for some candidates are going to be very strict. For others, they are going to show a number of lenient options also. So, let's have a look at all the rules one by one. So the first thing is we'll be talking about these first two clauses. They would be applicable to prospectus Part A and Part B of PGI Chandigarh only. So remember, I'm leaving aside all the AIMS, SCTI, MST, JIPMER Puducherry, NIMHANS Bengaluru. For the time being, regarding PGI Chandigarh, the first clause earlier used to be for sponsored candidates that under the sponsored category, those candidates were eligible who should have worked for 3 years till 31st July. So, this rule is for the July session. So, now instead of 31st July, that requirement for the July session has been changed to 30th June. So that means few candidates who completed their 3 year sponsored service after 30th June, they would become ineligible. Similarly, we have the January 26th session upcoming, and for the January session, the earlier requirement was candidates should have completed 3 year service by 31st January. Now, the modified date is 31st December. So these changes have come into effect immediately, so they must be taken into consideration. And moreover, if you wish to and if you need to make any changes to your application based on these, then you still have time till 4 p.m. on the 21st October. So the second condition and equally important is again this is a condition for those candidates who are sponsored by the state government. So the earlier condition was that state government could sponsor candidates only in those courses which were not available in that state. So regarding that, in fact, a certificate had also to be issued, and if I'm not wrong, the name of that certificate was Appendix E. So it had to be clearly mentioned in that certificate, and it had to be attested by a gazetted officer that that particular course is not available in the concerned state. So this clause has now been deleted. In other words, even if a course is available in a particular state, still the state government can sponsor the candidates. Moving to number three, so the sponsored candidates were earlier allowed to indicate the choice of subject, and there was a restriction they could apply only for one subject. And now the changed rule says that the sponsored candidates can apply in a maximum of four subjects. But remember, these cannot be any random four subjects. These have to be among the list of subjects which are available for the category of sponsored candidates. So, moving to the next rule. So, again, this is for the sponsored candidates. So, the earlier rule, which was that the candidate should have completed 3 year service before 31st January for the January session and before 31st July for the July session. This will hold as such. There is no change in all the aims Nimhans, Bengaluru, SCTI, MST, and Jipmer Puducherry. So you can see clause by clause, word by word, things on left and right hand side are the same. The only change is on the right hand side, PGI Chandigarh is missing. So PGI Chandigarh has changed requirement, which I mentioned earlier. Moving to the next clause, again at Chandigarh itself. So the sponsorship or the deputation certificate had to mention that the PG degree for the candidate which is being sponsored is not available in this state. So it is almost a repeat of the previous clause. Now this clause B has been deleted. So in other words, yes, this is Appendix E, the sponsorship certificate. This will not be a mandatory requirement now. Then in the 6 year MCH degree or the 6 year DM degree, students were allowed to appear in exams at the end of 5 years. In fact, they had a choice. They could appear in exams at the end of 5 years, or at the end of 5.5 years, or at the end of 6 years as well. So that choice has now been taken away, and the new clause is that all candidates shall be eligible for appearing in exam only at the end of 6 years. So a sort of uniformity has been established, and candidates have been given a clear message: your degree is only going to be over by 6 years. At the end of 6 years only, you would be free from this process. So there is no need for any hassle. So all these changes have come into effect immediately. And lastly, this latest notice mentions that in view of these changes and maybe some other potential changes, a revised prospectus part A and revised prospectus part B would be released in due course of time. So stay tuned to our channel. Good luck.